In America today, over 15 million seniors live alone, a number growing faster than ever before. But here's what few people ever say out loud. Loneliness doesn't start when someone leaves. It begins the moment you stop reaching. The moment the phone calls get shorter, the visits less frequent, and the silence begins to feel heavier than peace. Yet, there's another side to this story, a truth most never hear. Living alone doesn't have to mean living lonely. In fact, it can become one of the most empowering, creative, and peaceful seasons of your entire life. Many older adults across the country are rewriting what it means to age solo, trading isolation for inspiration, rediscovering old passions, and building quiet routines that bring joy and purpose back into their days. The world often tells seniors that solitude is something to fear. But what if it's actually a new beginning? A chance to reconnect, not with the world as it used to be, but with yourself as you are now. If you live alone, or love someone who does, hit like right now, because the next few minutes might change how you see solitude forever. What comes next isn't about fear or loss. It's about reclaiming peace, purpose, and freedom, one small, meaningful step at a time. Meet Eleanor Price, 81 years old, a retired high school art teacher from the quiet hills of Asheville, North Carolina. She has soft silver hair tied neatly into a loose bun, gentle hazel eyes framed by thin-rimmed reading glasses, and she's almost never seen without her favorite lavender cardigan, still marked with tiny paint stains from her watercolor sessions. A colorful reminder that creativity doesn't retire when you do. After her husband passed away 5 years ago, Eleanor's cozy cottage slowly turned into a museum of stillness. Every photo, every paintbrush, every piece of furniture whispering stories of a life once shared. At first, the silence felt unbearable. Days blurred together, and evenings stretched endlessly. But one morning, as she stood in her sunlit kitchen sipping chamomile tea, Eleanor made a quiet promise to herself. This house may be quiet, but it will not be empty. Instead of chasing companionship, she decided to create connection, one thoughtful moment at a time. Through trial, creativity, and courage, Eleanor developed what she now calls her 7 living alone guides. 7 simple but powerful shifts that turned her solitude into serenity. Her story isn't about loss, it's about rediscovery. About finding purpose again in the small rituals, the quiet mornings, and the laughter that can return when you learn how to truly live with yourself, not just by yourself. Guide number 1. Reclaim your morning. For Eleanor, mornings used to feel heavy, a long stretch of quiet that reminded her of everything she'd lost. But over time, she discovered something profound. The tone of your morning decides the rhythm of your entire day. So she chose to reclaim it. Now, each sunrise begins with a small ritual. Before touching her phone or turning on the TV, Eleanor walks to her window, opens the curtains, and lets in the soft Carolina light. She brews a pot of chamomile tea, inhales deeply, and plays a gentle playlist filled with songs from the 1960s. Songs that once played on road trips with her late husband. As the first chords of What a Wonderful World drift through the air, her home feels alive again. Experts in 2025 wellness studies have confirmed what Eleanor intuitively learned. Seniors who create structured, sensory-rich morning routines experience higher mental clarity, reduced anxiety, and stronger emotional resilience throughout the day. The first hour after waking is when your brain's emotional centers are most responsive, meaning small, intentional actions like sunlight exposure, stretching, journaling, or simply enjoying quiet tea can literally reset your emotional chemistry for the day ahead. Eleanor began calling this her morning reclaim. It wasn't about productivity or achievement. It was about choosing peace before the world had a chance to intrude. Over time, her mornings stopped feeling like something to survive and started becoming moments to savor. The smell of tea, the brush of sunlight, the sound of familiar music, each became a soft thread that stitched her days together with calm purpose. And here's the lesson she loves to share. Living alone doesn't have to mean waking to emptiness. Your mornings are a blank canvas, and you hold the brush. Whether it's playing your favorite record, stepping outside to breathe in the morning air, or writing down one thing you're grateful for, the key is to begin your day on your terms. The way you start your day decides if you live it, or just pass through it. What's one small ritual that makes your morning feel alive? Guide number 2. Create your connection ritual. For Eleanor, connection didn't come from crowds or busy events. It started on her front porch. After months of quiet dinners and one-sided conversations with the TV, she realized something powerful. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of shared moments. So, she started something small but life-changing, her Porch Tea Tuesdays. Every Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m., she brewed 2 cups of tea, 1 chamomile, 1 mint, and set out a plate of butter cookies on a little wicker table outside her house in Asheville, North Carolina. There were no invitations printed, no fancy arrangements. She simply told her neighbors, "My porch is open every Tuesday, come sit if you'd like." At first, it was just her and the chirping birds. But by the 3rd week, her next-door neighbor, Mr. Harlan, a widower who rarely left his house, showed up, holding a jar of homemade jam. The next week, a young mother from down the street came by, exhausted from caring for her toddler. Slowly, week by week, the porch became more than a space. It became a ritual of warmth and presence. Researchers in 2025 studying microsocial rituals have found that small, consistent social interactions, even 10-minute chats with a neighbor or a barista, are more effective at reducing isolation in older adults than large, infrequent social gatherings. These mini-moments release oxytocin, the hormone of trust and comfort, creating emotional resilience without overwhelming social effort. Eleanor's ritual became a rhythm. She didn't wait for special occasions or holidays to connect. She built connection into the fabric of her week. No pressure, no expectation. Just a cup of tea, a friendly ear, and the steady hum of conversation. It gave her something to look forward to, a reason to brush her hair, tidy the porch, and open her world again. She often says, "You don't need 50 friends to feel loved. You just need 1 cup of tea and a little consistency." If you live alone, creating a connection ritual can be as simple as calling the same friend every Thursday, walking your dog at the same time as a neighbor, or sharing a coffee with someone you see often. What matters isn't the size of the moment. It's the rhythm of showing up. Connection doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be regular. Who could you share a simple moment with this week? Guide number 3. Use your passion to serve. There came a time when Eleanor's house felt too quiet, the kind of silence that echoes. One afternoon, as she stood before her easel painting a small watercolor of the Blue Ridge Mountains, a thought struck her. Maybe someone else could use this silence, but filled with color instead. That single thought sparked a movement in her small community. With her old laptop and a $15 webcam, Eleanor began offering free online watercolor classes for seniors across the country. She called it Brushstrokes of Connection. Every Wednesday morning, her kitchen turned into a studio, jars of paint water lined up beside her teacup, sunlight filtering through lace curtains, and a tablet propped up against a mug. The first class had only 2 people, a widowed man from Kansas and a retired librarian from Maine. But word spread quickly. Within a few months, her Zoom gallery was filled with smiling faces from all over the United States. Seniors holding up their paintings, laughing, and sharing memories as they painted together. Eleanor didn't realize it then, but she was tapping into something psychologists in 2025 call purpose exchange. Studies now show that when older adults engage in meaningful activities that benefit others, teaching, mentoring, storytelling, volunteering, they experience a measurable boost in serotonin and dopamine, the brain's fulfillment chemicals. It's not just happiness. It's biochemical proof that giving keeps you alive, engaged, and cognitively sharp. But what really mattered to Eleanor wasn't the science. It was the emails she received after every class. Messages from people who said her voice gave them peace, that her art gave them direction, that Wednesday had become their favorite day of the week. She realized she hadn't just found a hobby. She'd found a mission. Her philosophy became simple. If I have something to share, even a small thing, then I'm never truly alone. Whether it's baking, gardening, storytelling, or playing music, your gifts don't expire with age. They just change form. You can share recipes on Facebook groups, offer mentorship to younger professionals, or record your stories for your grandchildren. Every act of service, no matter how small, ripples outward, and in giving others connection, you quietly heal your own loneliness. Purpose is the best cure for loneliness, and the best reason to wake up tomorrow. What talent or story could you share that might lift someone else? Guide number 4. Strengthen emotional fitness. One quiet evening, as rain tapped softly against her window, Eleanor realized she had spent most of her adult life teaching others to see beauty, yet she rarely paused to recognize it in her own days. That night, she opened a small leather-bound notebook and wrote 3 simple sentences. The rain sounded peaceful tonight. I made soup that reminded me of my mother. I felt grateful for my porch light still working. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Within weeks, this small act of nightly reflection transformed her evenings. Instead of replaying regrets or loneliness before bed, she began closing each day with warmth, awareness, and peace. She wasn't documenting her pain. She was documenting her joy. Modern psychologists now call this emotional fitness training, a mental exercise proven to strengthen resilience, optimism, and overall well-being, especially for seniors living alone. Studies from 2025 show that seniors who practice structured gratitude journaling for just 10 minutes a day report up to a 35% increase in emotional stability and a noticeable drop in nighttime anxiety. But Eleanor didn't stop there. She started what she affectionately called her gratitude calls. Every morning, before breakfast, she phoned one friend or former student, just to share one good thing. Some days it was about her blooming azaleas. Other days, it was simply, I slept well last night. The call wasn't long, 5 minutes at most, but it became a ritual that reminded her she wasn't alone in the world. These calls didn't just help her friends, they helped her brain. Neuroscientists explain that positive conversations activate the prefrontal cortex, which controls emotional regulation and creativity. In simple terms, each small act of gratitude literally rewires your brain for calm and contentment. Eleanor often said, I may live alone, but my words keep me company. Her advice for others is simple yet profound. Build emotional strength the same way you maintain physical health, with small, daily representatives of kindness and reflection. Whether you prefer journaling, praying, meditating, or simply listing 3 good things before bed, consistency matters more than perfection. And when you speak kindness aloud, in a phone call, in a letter, or even in front of a mirror, you don't just lift your mood for a moment. You build an emotional muscle that will carry you through any lonely night or difficult day. Takeaway, your emotions are like muscles. Use them with kindness, and they'll carry you further. Mini prompt. Who could you call today just to share something good? Guide number 5. Redesign your home for peace. One spring morning, Eleanor stood in her living room and noticed something she hadn't truly seen before. Her space no longer felt alive. The curtains were drawn, the colors dull, and the air carried an echo of stillness that felt heavier than silence. It wasn't sadness exactly, it was stagnation. The home she once shared with laughter and music had quietly become a waiting room for memories. That day, she made a promise to herself, if I'm going to live alone, I'll live beautifully. So, she began her quiet transformation, not to impress anyone, but to comfort her own soul. She started small. She replaced her heavy, beige curtains with sheer, cream-colored ones that let in soft, golden morning light. She added a lamp with a warm amber glow beside her favorite armchair, and the change was instant. Her evenings no longer felt like shadows stretching into the dark, but rather like twilight wrapping her in peace. Next came color. She took her old watercolor paints, the same ones that once gathered dust in a corner, and began creating art for her walls. Abstract flowers, mountain landscapes, scenes from her memories. Every brushstroke filled the room with a heartbeat. Soon, her living room became her gallery, a living reflection of her spirit, not her solitude. Experts in 2025 emphasize how environment directly affects emotional health, particularly for seniors spending more time indoors. According to a recent AARP report, seniors who refresh their living spaces with intentional lighting, soft textures, and personal art experience a 40% improvement in reported mood and sleep quality. The logic is simple. When your home feels peaceful, your body follows. Eleanor often described it this way. My home used to hold my loneliness. Now, it holds my peace. She added calming sounds, a soft wind chime on the porch, a small tabletop fountain that whispered through the night. Even her kitchen changed. She placed fresh herbs by the window, so the scent of rosemary and mint greeted her every morning. Every corner became a conversation with serenity. What Eleanor discovered, and what design psychologists now confirm, is that your space doesn't just reflect your emotions, it creates them. A cluttered, dim home amplifies isolation. A bright, intentional one nurtures joy, calm, and control. So, if you live alone, look around your space right now. Ask yourself, does this home comfort me, or contain me? Sometimes peace begins not with a new hobby or a big change, but with rearranging the light, the scent, or the color of your walls. Don't just live in your home. Let your home live with you. What's one corner of your home that could use a touch of calm? Guide number 6. Keep learning, keep growing. One cool autumn evening, Eleanor sat by her window as the sun dipped behind the Blue Ridge Mountains. She had her tea in hand and her tablet glowing softly beside her. On the screen was a lively group of seniors from across the country, laughing, debating, and discussing To Kill a Mockingbird. It wasn't just a book club. It was Eleanor's window into a world that never stopped expanding. For years after retiring, Eleanor believed her learning days were over. She had spent decades teaching art and literature, believing her purpose was to pass knowledge down. But now, in her 80s, she realized learning wasn't just for the young. It was for the living. She started small, joining an online senior learning network through her local library. Within weeks, she was part of a vibrant community, not bound by geography, but by curiosity. They talked about books, technology, even space exploration. Eleanor learned to use digital art tools, created her first virtual painting, and proudly shared it with her classmates. The joy wasn't just in the knowledge itself. It was in discovering that her mind still hungered for growth. As she often said, learning gives me the same thrill now that travel used to. Each idea feels like a new place to explore. And she was right. The science backs her up. According to a 2025 National Institute on Aging study, seniors who regularly engage in structured learning, such as book discussions, creative courses, or language classes, experience 35% slower cognitive decline compared to those who don't. Learning new things helps stimulate neural connections, boosts memory, and even improves emotional well-being by fostering a sense of purpose and belonging. Eleanor's weekly discussions weren't about grades or deadlines. They were about connection and curiosity. When she laughed with others over misread passages or discovered an old poem that made her tear up, she wasn't just keeping her brain sharp, she was keeping her heart open. She also experimented beyond reading. She signed up for a short online photography course designed for seniors, learning how to capture light and emotion in every frame. Before long, she was taking portraits of her neighbors and sending them as personalized gifts. Her world, once quiet and predictable, now buzzed with possibility. In 2025, the internet is filled with free, senior-friendly learning spaces, from ARP's Learn at 50+ programs to university Silver Scholar courses and virtual museum tours that bring culture right into living rooms. For many seniors, this is more than education, it's empowerment. It reminds them that growth doesn't stop with age, it evolves with it. So, if you've ever thought your best learning years are behind you, Eleanor's story says otherwise. Your 60s, 70s, or 80s might just be the perfect time to learn for the joy of it. Not for a diploma, but for discovery. Age doesn't end curiosity, it deepens it. What's something new you'd love to learn this month? Guide number 7. Build your safety circle. It started one winter morning when Eleanor slipped on her front steps after a light frost. It wasn't serious, just a small tumble and a bruised knee, but it shook her. Not because of the fall itself, but because she realized no one knew. It took her almost 2 hours to call a neighbor for help. That morning became her wake-up call, not to fear being alone, but to rethink what independence really meant. A few days later, she sat at her kitchen table, soft sunlight pouring through her sheer curtains, and drew a small circle on a piece of paper. Inside it, she wrote, safety circle. Around the edges, she added names: her niece, her church friend, her neighbor across the street, and her doctor's assistant. This simple act became one of the most important decisions of her later years. Eleanor's safety circle wasn't about dependence, it was about trust. Each person had a role. Her niece had access to her key medical documents stored securely in a shared cloud folder. Her neighbor had a spare key and checked in every Thursday evening. Her doctor's assistant helped her set up automatic medication reminders linked to her smartwatch. They weren't intruding on her life, they were extending it. "I didn't lose my independence," Eleanor said. "I just made it stronger." And she was right. In 2025, gerontologists and aging specialists increasingly promote the concept of shared safety. The idea that independence isn't isolation, but supported autonomy. Studies from the American Society on Aging show that seniors with small, intentional support circles are 45% less likely to experience delayed emergency care, identity fraud, or prolonged loneliness compared to those who manage completely alone. Technology has made this easier than ever. Seniors today can use simple tools, like Apple's Health app, Life 360 Family Locator, or even Alexa's Care Hub, to share updates discreetly without feeling monitored. Eleanor set hers to send a quiet daily "I'm okay" notification to her niece. It wasn't intrusive. It was reassuring. What made Eleanor's circle powerful wasn't just the technology, it was the communication. They agreed on boundaries. They respected her privacy. But they all knew that if something went wrong, help would never be far away. That sense of invisible protection gave Eleanor something she hadn't felt in years: true peace of mind. She even started encouraging her watercolor students, many of them seniors living alone, to build their own circles. Some called them check-in teams, others buddy lists. It didn't matter what they were called. What mattered was the connection. Because, as Eleanor put it, we can't always stop life's storms, but we can make sure no one stands in the rain alone. So, if you live alone, ask yourself, who's in your safety circle? Who could you call, or text, or trust to hold a small piece of your well-being? Because real independence isn't about shutting people out, it's about letting the right ones in. Takeaway: independence doesn't mean doing it alone, it means knowing you're supported. Who's in your safety circle, and who should be? Eleanor's home once echoed with silence, the kind that pressed against the walls and followed her from room to room. But now, it hums with quiet life. The soft buzz of her kettle, the laughter from her porch tea Tuesdays, the gentle shuffle of watercolor brushes. Her days have rhythm, purpose, and peace. She still lives alone, but she doesn't feel alone. Every morning begins with her window open to the Carolina breeze, and every evening ends with a call to someone who makes her smile. Her life isn't quieter anymore, it's fuller, richer, and deeply hers. As she sits by her window at sunset, a cup of tea warming her palms, she reflects softly. I used to fear the silence. Now it's where I hear my joy the loudest. Eleanor's story isn't just about surviving solitude, it's about transforming it. Living alone, she learned, isn't the absence of company, it's the presence of self. It's about hearing your own heartbeat and realizing it still dances to the rhythm of life. And that's what this guide, and this journey, is all about. Not escaping loneliness, but redefining it. Not chasing people, but creating meaning. So, to every senior watching this, living alone isn't a limitation, it's an invitation. An invitation to rediscover who you are, what you love, and what makes your soul light up again. Because at any age, but especially after 60, connection begins within. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your connection. If Eleanor's story inspired you, tap like, share this with someone who lives alone, and subscribe to Elderly Dose, where wisdom meets independence, and every story reminds us that solitude can be strength.